Richard, how are we doing today?
I got a haircut after exposing my lack of haircut last podcast.
That's
so
good.
It's been nice.
That's good.
Feeling fresh.
Yeah, if you haven't listened to the episode, folks, we had the owner of Hemingway's Barbershop on the show. Really, I've shaved since then too. I think it motivated both of us to really get our act together. Richard, I'm really excited for our guest today, mostly because I've got a tenant that I really need to evict, and I want his opinion on it. The tenant stands about 1.5 feet tall and comes in the form of a raccoon in my attic.
Right.
And I really can't think of anyone better to ask. So, I mean, obviously you guys have seen the title of the episode. Please welcome to the show today, folks, Joel Fox, the co-founder of Ownright and COO. Joel, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Joel.
Woo.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Richard. Happy to be here.
Yes. So Joel, what do we do about this raccoon, man?
Well, actually, when you started talking about that, Ben, I thought you were gonna be talking about a child at home that you were looking to evict, which I could understand as well. But yeah, raccoon makes a lot more sense.
Right. I do have a 2-year-old that I might need some help with too. So that's not off the table, but the raccoon is my main problem right now.
You might be working on the toddler for 20 years, my friend. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say the toddler might be a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
Some more complexity to that.
That
might be illegal to kick them out too. It might not work out for you.
Yeah. So Joel, tell us about yourself. Where and you're in Toronto now, but where are you from?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in Toronto now, live in Toronto, and honestly, mostly raised here. Was born out in Calgary, pretty quickly moved to the Toronto area, went to university out in Hamilton in McMaster. And that was kind of my brief stint.
I went to Western. We got
okay. Yeah. Fair enough. We have. I think I'm the only Mac person at Ownright here. We have a lot of Westerns. We have a lot of Queens people.
Nice.
That was my primary stint outside of Toronto, is spending 4-ish. Let's call it almost 5 in Hamilton. For an extended undergrad experience. But yeah.
So you're out in Calgary. Nice. I'm assuming it's family motivated or some other reason, but what brought you to Toronto? What brought your family here?
So I was 6 months old. My dad got work here. So my dad's side of the family is all out in West or from the West Coast. So he grew up in Saskatchewan. Uncles from there as well. They all ended up moving over to Calgary, Alberta, and they built much of their careers there. And then my dad got pulled into Toronto when I was quite young. So I can say I was born out there, but I really can't claim much outside of that. I think most people would count me as a Torontonian.
Okay, so I think the most important question for that is Leafs or Flames?
Leafs.
Oh, thank you.
Leafs.
Thank you.
I was named after Joel Otto. That was I'm slightly aging myself, I guess, on that. But Joel Otto scored on the night that I was born. And that's at least the lore of where my name came from.
So Calgary Flames in the family.
Calgary Flames is definitely in the family. Yeah.
Oh gosh, that's funny.
Both terrible teams this year, anyways. So
yes.
No matter which fan base you're looking at, we're all disappointed.
Yeah,
that's us.
I mean, it's nice to meet fellow Leaf. Misery loves company, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to get number 1 overall pick this year, so that's all.
Don't jinx it. I'm not saying anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, I don't want to skip too far forward here, but what were you doing before Ownright?
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of a timeline too. I mean, I'll skip past through my whole childhood and everything like that. But I went to McMaster for my undergrad. I did business there and got into essentially a call center role at a mutual fund company. Did that for a few years and went back to grad school, back at Mac, but still living in Toronto.
Was that call center as exciting as it sounds?
I cringed a little bit.
I will say it was an incredibly formative part of my experience. And I'd say for a few reasons. One, it got my ass in gear to say, okay, I don't like doing this. I need to set myself up for success to do something I'll enjoy more.
Yeah.
But two, I mean, I was taking 100 calls a day. So it wasn't a role where I was, responding to emails or text messages like a lot of the support or tickets or anything like that, which a lot of the support roles would be now. It was
Mhm.
like 100 plus calls a day. We were dealing with people that are angry about their finances. You're answering calls that are simple of like, what's my account balance? And as complicated as like, I mean, them not really understanding how mutual funds work and you having to explain both the up and the down of it. So, uh, it, I learned a lot in terms of like problem solving on the fly,
Mhm.
um, and just generally like, yeah, like talking people through problems without, all the context, but trying to pull the necessary details out of it. So, like, truly a very difficult, and I'd still say like one of the most difficult jobs I've had to date. Um, However, I learned a ton, a ton from it,
No kidding.
and which I didn't even appreciate at the time. It wasn't until I was like out of the job that I really appreciated like the skill set that I picked up there and was able to carry it through to everything else that I've done since.
Yeah.
Nice.
As a mutual fund rep, I worked in the bank for a long time. Do you find like it really exposed how the bank is selling these products without actual proper education to the clients, and then people are in products that they don't understand? Do you see that a lot?
Totally. And I should say I should date it. So this was all happening. I was like, it's like 2010 that I was doing it.
Okay.
And it wasn't for a bank. It was like an independent mutual fund distributor. Um, I mean, I'd say at like the come, and so I can't speak for the banks on the mutual fund distribution, although I did work at a bank later on, which I can speak to.
Cool.
Um, I feel like as the company that created the funds, we were quite reasonable about what we were, selling on that front. But the problem is like we would sell through brokers.
Mhm.
And so you'd see very clearly differences in like the quality of brokers and you know, the explanation that they were giving to their clients based on what we got through on the customer or the client service part of the organization. So yeah, I'd say you could like being in a role like that, and maybe Richard, it was the same thing for you. Like you could come out of it a little bit jaded, in and not trusting.
Cleaning up other people's messes is hard.
Total. I mean, that was a lot of the time we'd get calls and people would be asking us that like questions that really they should have been asking their brokers and they should have understood the answer for before investing into any type of product like ours at the time. But yeah, I was like this young kid just out of undergrad that was speaking to adults in my mind, trying to explain them how financial services products work and why their investment went down versus the automatic assumption that it would just always go up. So
Right.
yeah, challenging role and like yeah, I'd say like left me a little questioning things coming out of that. But I'd say the company, and again, at least I can speak for the company that I was at. I felt like they did a reasonably good job of communicating things accurately and fairly.
Nice.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
So after this job, where'd we move on to?
I went to grad school, did my MBA at Mac, and did the co-op program there, so that I get to try out a few different things.
Mhm.
Because of my experience in financial services, I swore that I'd never get back into it. And then you fast forward to the end of my MBA program, and I ended up at RBC
Nice.
in a leadership rotational program. So obviously, my perspective on things changed as I went through that grad school program, and I gained a better understanding of what type of experience I was looking for, and knew that not all financial services roles were the same. I learned
Right.
that, so I was able to go into the rotational program, rotate through multiple different parts of the bank, both at the head office level and then in commercial banking as well. I never actually worked in the branch,
Mhm.
but it was a really great learning experience across the board. And then that launched me into after that program, which was 2 years, that I moved into the tech and ops world of RBC, and so did a variety of roles there. And all in all, my time at RBC was like 7 years, just about.
What was the time
Yeah.
frame for this? Like like the actual time, like years.
As in, are we talking years
Yeah,
or
years.
okay? So 2014 ish was when I started there. And so 2020 or 2021-ish would be, geez, I'd even have to refer to my LinkedIn to confirm that.
The
But
only reason I'm
it was
wondering
about a
is
7-year stint.
okay. The only reason I'm wondering, and you did the tech part at the end, right?
Yeah. So I'd say, and maybe this is where you're going with that, Richard, like I never considered myself an entrepreneur. Like I never thought that I'd be going that direction. I should also say that I never thought I'd go to grad school, but obviously things changed. Then I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. Once I got to RBC, I really felt, I liked it there and felt like I wanted to build a career, and kind of like my aspiration was always like moving up the ladder, and aspiring to move as high as I could there. But once I moved over to the tech and ops world of RBC, specifically, I was on the innovation team there, and that coincided pretty strongly with like uh, a, a building of like the startup scene in Toronto. Tech TO is the organization that I think like drove a lot of that, and so RBC, we had pretty close relationship with Tech TO and then what they were doing. So that opened my eyes a little bit more to what the potential outside of RBC could be. And, fast forwarding a bit, but ultimately got me to found a couple companies after leaving RBC.
Right. Just for the dummies in the audience like me, I've never heard of Tech TO. What what is that? Like what's that all about?
It's a community. My gosh, it's a community of events, or a series of events that were put on and still are to this day, that tried to pull together the tech community in Toronto. Trying to think of a way better way. I'm not giving the guys who created it much credit here, but it's an incredible community, and it started like very small, where they put on an event, I think essentially to like get a startup founder on stage and talk about their experience. Okay. And they just kind of grew it from there. So it became an event. Sorry, I'm just getting spammed with a call here. It geez, good question, Ben. Hey, you actually stumped me on this. If the Tech TO team is listening to me right now, I'm truly sorry. I'm not giving you guys the credit that you deserve. Although I absolutely credit them with kind of like maybe getting the word out there a little bit more about the tech community in Toronto and Canada. And what I will say is, at the time, so call it like, maybe it was more like 2016, 2018 that I was getting into the world of tech through RBC. There was a lot of discussion about how like the startup world within Canada wasn't enticing to entrepreneurs, and you had a lot of brain drain out to San Francisco, right. And there was a whole bunch of reasons for that, like not a great network of people. The hypothesis was like people weren't necessarily building strong networks within Canada. And that was all the way from like VC funding through to like opportunities for co-founders. And so I believe, and again, don't want to speak for the Tech TO folks or the folks that started Tech TO, but like the thought was like, we have a lot of great people coming up through the great education system that we have in Canada, like talking about the post-secondary education schools that we were talking about. Mm-hmm. Let's find a way to like cultivate that community, bring everyone together. And they've just evolved from there. So it started with events, and it's grown.
Nice.
Wow.
It's actually, I'll throw this out. Yeah. Sorry, real quick. If the Tech TO folks are listening and you want to come on and tell us more about it, we're all ears. But I think you did pretty well there, Joel.
Maybe saved myself at the end.
Yeah. No, killed it.
It's cool that we're talking about this, because on Tuesday I was actually we have a place in town called the Innovation Hub, and it is inspiring entrepreneurs or like people in the tech industry locally to work. So it's kind of similar, I think. And I was there on Tuesday, and I was telling Ben, I learned how to make an app with Claude. I learned how to make a website. Grew up in the country, not really a tech guy. So AI gives us like all the capabilities of not having a background, but still capable to do all this stuff. And just hearing what other people are building and how they're using tech in their business is amazing. So I'm sure this is a little bit earlier, obviously before AI, but super inspired, of course.
Totally. And I would have to imagine that they're like doing much of that the similar stuff that you talked about there, Richard,
Right.
like leaning into AI right now and trying to make it accessible for folks. Like that was what, as a non-technical person myself, so not a coder, developer, or anything like that, and someone that more so came up from in the like financial services world, the tech world was like scary and intimidating to me. And what the tech TO community was trying to do, I think, amongst other things, was like make it a more open and inviting community that brought people from like all walks of life in. Um, Again, exactly kind of like what you were describing. That's what was it called, Richard? The innovation.
It's called the Innovation Hub. I know there's
Okay,
some other ones in Aurelia and maybe Barrie,
gotcha.
Collingwood. I'm assuming they're probably even more broad, but that's what I know about. Yeah.
Totally.
Coming from the bank as well, like maybe you were so scared, not scared, but saw the risk in tech and saw the scary side of it, just because the bank is so far behind when it comes to tech and innovation. How did you feel about that when at your late years of RBC after being part of this tech TO?
Yeah, interesting question. So actually, at the early part of my days at RBC, and actually even before joining there, I knew of this tiny company that was just getting off the ground called Wealthsimple. So Wealthsimple was actually like on my radar before I even started at RBC. And they were probably a team of like 7 people at that point. And so the first rotation I had at RBC was basically on like the strategy team for personal and commercial banking. And young me was trying to sound the alarm saying like, oh my God, like these fintechs are going to take over. Like these guys are creating this like robo investor that's just going to like absolutely stomp the banks. And that was like my perspective in the early days. And that was maybe like a bit of like the niche that I carved out, which maybe is why the personal commercial bank just punted me over to tech and ops after that. But like in the early days, I truly thought, I was like, oh my God, like these players are like not just coming for the banks, but are gonna like, um, you know, take over the banks and really become a problem for them. But that, I think, was at a time when I didn't understand the like power of banks. And I think like, I think I was right in that like Wealthsimple has gone on to become like an incredible company, and like never could have foreseen how strong and a strong success story that they'd become. But I think rather than me thinking companies like that would like, you know, eat banks lunch, I think it just became that like both could exist.
Right.
And so I think the Wealthsimples of the world, your Neos, those types of banks are doing like really incredible things and creating options. But I also think like the banks continue to be incredibly strong. And, being a part of a bank, it can be frustrating with like how slow it moves, but it's a highly regulated industry. And for a lot of reasons, it has to move slow. And, you're also talking about like 100,000 person companies.
Right.
It's like steering, the Titanic. So, or a large ship. Titanic would be a bad word for that.
But when they want to move
But,
fast, they can move fast, right? Like they see an opportunity,
Totally.
they're going to lose market share, they're going to move fast. And I love WebBroker. I don't know if you've ever used TD's brokerage investment platform,
No.
but I know they're like number one in the industry. They hold like a ridiculous amount of market share, and I love it. And I'm in my time in the bank, I saw more and more people moving in that direction than sticking to advisors, because people want to use YouTube and get their own knowledge and education, and then do it themselves at a cheaper price, not pay the MERs and everything like that. So they just started dominating the world, right? They took over.
Totally. And I think like those players have come in and like done incredibly well. And actually like the financial advice space is like a really good example of like, you just have different groups of people that want different things. Like when I was younger at the time, I was like incredibly attracted to the idea of what we were calling at the time like a robo advisor. Where like now I have more of a traditional like broker or financial advisor that we work with, and I value that personal relationship, and that kind of like context that he holds in working with me and my family. But it's just like a good example of how like at a smaller level of how like the two kind of worlds of companies, being your like, although Simple has just gotten so big, it's hard to just call them like a startup or anything right now, but like they're massive, and they're incredibly successful. But on the other hand, like RBC is also incredibly successful. So it's kind of like expanded the pie rather than just like one of them squashing the other.
Right. You just got more people investing than ever. That's why.
So there you go. Yeah. And actually, yeah, sorry, Richard, I think I went off on a tangent there to your question about how I felt about the world of innovation at the banks. Like, yeah, it evolved over time.
Right.
And I saw like ebbs and flows. And I think when like banks are doing really, really well, it becomes easy to invest in innovation and more aspirational things. And then, if things aren't quite going as well, then they need to tighten their belts. But all of them have done an incredibly good job of running strong businesses over like a very, very long time. So,
Right.
Yeah, I can't doubt that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. So okay. So we did our 7 years with RBC.
Yes.
And then what was next?
Okay. So did 7 years with RBC, and my exposure to the startup community, the tech community, I think started to get me thinking about what else I might do. And I think, my biggest fear in work life was, and this evolved over time, I didn't necessarily know it from the start, was that my biggest fear was knowing what I was going to do for the rest of my life. So it was like, define whatever that is. Like if I knew I was going to be like a bricklayer for the rest of my life, that was scary to me. I liked the idea of like not knowing what was going to come in the future, and I wanted the opportunity for variety. And I think the bank increasingly just didn't give me that, and I felt like, if I didn't leave at some point in the near future, I felt like I was going to stay there for a really long time, because it could have been a really great place to stay. So I started to think about other options. Started to talk to like the tech companies, your Shopify's of the world, and look at what it would be like to work at one of those places. But ultimately, what ended up pulling me away was I had founded a company with a few friends in the e-commerce space, in grocery delivery.
Okay.
Company called Rise Market. And I started that while still at RBC, and we were just running it on the side, playing around with things, getting that kind of like creative side hustle going. But as a result of COVID, the business started to take off quite well, as you can imagine, because people were leaning on grocery delivery a lot more at the time. So that put me in a position to say like, okay, well, if there's ever a time, I mean, I basically had to choose between one or the other. And I felt like if there's ever a time to step away from RBC to try something different, it was then. So that pulled me away from RBC, and with my co-founders ran that company for a few years through the pandemic, which was a huge learning experience. Also a very difficult job.
When you come to that fork in the road to make that decision, and you're like talking to people about it, whether it's people at RBC, I don't know how many people you're telling at RBC that you might leave, but people that you mentors and even your family, like what is the response to that? Like, hey, I'm going to leave this corporate job to go venture. What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, first, I was with my now wife, but we were like very far into our relationship at that point too. So she was like a huge factor in that decision, and someone that I had to talk to. And she actually, right out of grad school, she graduated around the same time as me, and she went into the world of tech. So I kind of had her, I like saw what she was doing. And so she was supportive of the idea and always knew that I was open to something outside of RBC. So she was obviously the first person that I talked to. And then in terms of like, how did other people respond? It depends on the category. So we talked to some people at the bank, and they're like, oh man, good on you. Like, you're actually stepping away. Like, we all say we're going to do it. Yeah, exactly. Like, we all say we're going to do it, and like, you actually did it. Or you're actually going to do it. And, I think there was that camp of people within the bank and within my network at the bank that were like, wow, cool, good on you. And then there were others that were like, you're insane. Like you have this really like people aspire to get into the bank. It's a really safe and secure job that, pays reasonably well. And you have the opportunity to move up the ranks here. Like, why would you give that up? And so I think like I heard all different perspectives. And I should say naturally parents, look
Yes.
at what their kids do and think it's dumb no matter what. So I think I just had to accept that I was going to have to like show them that it was a worthwhile pursuit. So, I had like a lot of different people in my world and sphere with a lot of different perspectives. So at the end of the day, like obviously had to come down to myself to make the decision. And the decision, like the thing that really drove my decision was like, what am I going to regret? Um, you know, am I going to regret having made this leap, or am I going to regret having not made the leap? And that's how I framed a lot of the decisions that I've made. I mean, before then, and then since then as well. And when I put it that way, it was easy. Like I felt like, if I failed in that pursuit, I could go back to the bank if I wanted to. And then if I didn't, then great. I made the right decision to pursue something. Now, like it was hard as hell, and went through massive like challenges and dips in confidence and everything doing that. But like similar to the experience, yeah, believe it or not, in the entrepreneurial pursuit,
Right.
so yeah, like it was a whole journey in itself, but like was another kind of like inflection point for me, just as I'd say the call center experience was in my career and what I ended up doing.
Right. Was there
Very cool.
anything on those low days that still got you out of bed and like, made you keep driving towards that like, light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah,
He's still chasing.
it's yeah, still it's. I mean, it's tale of two because I'm now on to my next company that I was part of the founding team of, and very different experience. I think with the first company, um, I think I always like would try to root myself or bring myself back to the thinking that made me pursue it in the first place. So, obviously, as much as I had good times at the bank, there were times that like I was really frustrated, didn't enjoy being there, wanted something different. So, while I was in the thick of it and the really difficult times of entrepreneurship, I was reminding myself that like I, I chose this, and the alternative would be that like I'd be back at the bank. Maybe dealing with some of the stuff that I really didn't like dealing with. I'd also say it's very different building, like when you're building something as a founder or whatever it is, like building your own business. And I mean, you guys I think would know it in your spaces, like when you're building your own thing, like your own asset, your company, your passion or whatever, it's just a whole different motivation where it's like the purpose of your work is something bigger than just like completing the widgets that you're completing on a day to day while working at a bank. And so I found that motivating. Now that doesn't take you forever. Like I hit a point where I decided to stop that gig and move on. But I probably, because there was like a lot motivating me, I probably even pushed it longer than I should have.
Right.
You're like, I've done this already. I've learned a lot. I'm willing to take this on to something else. You can pivot, make a change, got some momentum. Yeah.
Well, picking up skill set along the way, right? Like you learned what works, what's not working, what can be
totally.
Yeah.
And I'd say like the difference that happened for me is like at RBC, at the bank, I would rather refer to it as I like quickly got into roles where I was like overseeing and supporting and strategizing and managing and not doing a lot of doing. And I felt like I was getting really good at working at a bank, but not necessarily really good at like business per se, and the specific skill sets that would make me successful in business. Where jumping into the world of like entrepreneurship, doing your own thing, forces you to get your hands dirty and build some grit. Where I think like that's that first experience with the first company that I was a founder of, like built grit that I didn't have. before.
Right.
So like definitely some good like skills and everything like that. But like I'd say the most important thing I took away from that was the grit built.
Wow.
Okay.
I am loving so much of what you're saying. I can relate a heck of a lot. I love what you said about a lot of planning and not a lot of doing.
I
I
can
feel like
see
that
like the
does happen a
spark
lot,
in your
but
eyes, Richard. It's beautiful.
yeah, I'm enjoying this a lot. I'm like, oh man, there's more I want to know. Maybe stuff that won't even make it on the pod, but
Right.
There you go. Yeah.
I love to
Yeah.
hear it.
Um, so between Rise Market and
Yeah.
Ownright, was there a break? Did one kind of flow into the other? Like, how did that transition into this new venture happen?
Yeah, very, very much one flowed into the other. So I'd shared with my co-founders of Rise that like I needed to step away and like for a whole suite of reasons. Like it was, a really extremely challenging experience,
Mhm.
both physically and mentally, and then even financially, it was a challenge. Like that's the part that like, is often skipped over when people are talking about like startups or entrepreneurship. Like especially if you're leaving a career elsewhere, you're taking a massive dive in your earnings if you're making anything at all. And so, I went through a while there where it was like, if earnings existed, they weren't matching remotely close to what I kind of could have gotten elsewhere. So, um, my co-founders were supportive of that and understood the need to move on. So, actually, the plan when leaving there, I'd shifted to part time to like think about what was next, but to not leave the business hanging. And
Right.
the plan was to go get a real job again.
Right. Okay.
And so I was like thinking about what that looked like. Considering maybe I was going to go back to the bank, or maybe I was going to like try to step into the world of big tech and some of those companies that were doing quite well.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm so curious because we haven't mentioned the word real estate law like at all. Like up until this point.
it doesn't have, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I certainly was not on my radar at all that I would be stepping into real estate law. I guess I should say and this maybe will go in a little bit more into the story of like Ownright and why I felt comfortable joining. But my
Mhm.
wife and I bought a place in 2019,
Okay.
so we had transacted, and that was pre-COVID. So the
Good for
closing
you.
experience was yes, that was nice, but the closing experience was like very analog, in person signing. You just got told the signing date. So that I'll kind of like come back to that because like that was an important part of the overall story that I skipped over.
Right.
Um, but as I would, I think the best thing for anyone who's trying to find a job or figure out what's next is to get out there and talk to people. And so that's what I was doing at that time. And someone within my network was my now co-founder, Robert, and he and I were chatting and just catching up as we had a few times over the past year or two as I've been doing my own entrepreneurial thing. And he was at one of those big tech companies, and I said, yeah, I'm stepping away from Rise. I'm getting back into the corporate world and just figuring out what that might look like.
Mhm.
And he's like, well, I'm starting something. Would you consider, like, would you be open to starting another company and joining my founding team? And at the time, like my immediate response was like, oh my God, no, I can never do that again. Like I literally crushed. My confidence was like lowest of the low at that point. So I was like, the thought of like starting my own thing again with a founding team was like terrifying. And,
Right.
I didn't say outright no, but I was like, hey, look, like, let's keep in touch. I can support you with some of the thinking and stuff like that, but like unlikely. Um, and it just evolved from there. And so I kind of had my thing. I started to build my criteria list of like what had to be true for me to feel comfortable starting another business. And I like almost didn't want to say yes, but as I like evaluated every criteria, it just met it. And, related, like this is where the real estate law piece comes into play is I was like, if I'm starting something again, I want to start something where it's like a real business and a real problem to be solved. And because I had gone through it before, I believed that it was a real problem to solve and a very definable problem to solve. and also a real business. It wasn't like you're creating a business and trying to find product market fit. It's like there's already business to be had there. So that was appealing to me to de-risk it. I mean, those were just a few of my criteria, but like, yeah, I didn't, and I mean, Robert would probably remember this even better than I would, but I was extremely hesitant from the start, and had obviously put my wife through a lot in the previous entrepreneurial pursuit. So
Our
I
poor
felt
partners.
like our poor partners. Yeah, I felt like an obligation to not, basically to just get our lives on a little bit more of a like uh, standard path, for lack of a better word, predictable, I'll say.
Sure.
Yeah.
But she was so supportive and was like, this is such a great opportunity, knowing that it did checks like pretty much every one of my like boxes in terms of the criteria that needed to be met for me to feel comfortable doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was probably the catalyst that like pushed me over the edge to be like, okay, you know what, I think I will do this.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, we started off, I should say, because I might just swap the words in and out. Our first name then at the time that we started the business was Doormat. So we've obviously since rebranded to Ownright, but at the time we started the company and it was myself, Robert, and Ben. We were called Doormat.
Nice. Any particular reason behind the rebrand?
Can you guess, or do you just?
I mean, like it seems pretty obvious, but I don't want to assume anything here.
So yeah. At the start, I'll say like even the name was Robert had already come up with the name at that time, and he hadn't just like come up with it in a vacuum. He'd come up with some ideas, tested them against like an audience, and Doormat was the one that won out.
Right.
But I think what evolved over time is a realization that like there's generational differences in how people perceive the word doormat.
Right.
And so he was talking to people in their kind of like 20s that didn't look at the word doormat with the negative connotation.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my world being in my 30s and the kind of like sphere of people I had around me, I was like aware of the negative connotation of the word, but like, it didn't dominate my thinking. And the generations above us, like kind of the older you go, the more people hear the word doormat and think about like, you're a doormat, like you get walked on like a doormat. And so it just, it just seemed to get like, to be something that we'd hear more and more as we were talking to people and like, agents and brokers, in the most extreme scenarios. And I think there's probably still Reddit threads out there where people would be like, oh, have you ever worked with Doormat before? And just random people would respond to be like, I would never want to work with a lawyer that calls them a doormat or themselves a doormat and blah, blah, blah. And like, oh my God. So for a while we had the perspective, like, at least it's generating a reaction.
Yeah.
A memorable reaction. And then we eventually decided to change.
Nice. Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, like I don't mind doormat as like, I feel like, it's appropriate. Like we're dealing with real estate, like houses have doormats, right? Like it's, yeah. Absolutely.
Welcoming to your home. That's what we were to like, and Robert sold me on it. Like eventually when we were talking about changing it, I was the last one. I was like dragged along kicking and screaming. I wanted to keep doormat. And I wasn't even the one that came up with it because, I felt it was good and representative. And I mean, the other thing is we just hadn't come up with any better ideas.
Sounds like a band name from like 1998 or something like that, like a punk band or something.
Yeah. Probably would have gotten a lot less complaints about it than a company in real estate law.
Right. So the whole idea of building a company like this seems so I guess like abstract to me. Like it's hard for me to like picture like what the day in and day out looks like before you've got the app, the website, whatever, everything off the ground running with like real estate lawyers in place and people coming in the door. Like what do those first few months of building this thing like actually look like?
Yeah, like a lot of for us, it was a few different things. So luckily, and I would say like one of the criteria that I had in my mind for choosing to, found another company was like having the right skill sets in place. So I was call it more of your like operational sales partnerships person. Robert was a software engineer by trade, and Ben was a real estate lawyer. So we kind of had everything that we needed in place where we didn't need to hire any outside expertise to help us build the company. Um, we like early days specific to us, we needed to figure out the regulatory environment. So at the time, we needed to be in touch with the regulator, being the Law Society of Ontario, to make sure that we were on side with what we were going to create. And at the time, there was program, like an innovation sandbox that they had created called the LSO Access to Innovation Program, which we decided to apply to be a part of it. We felt that that was a good way to kind of like vet our idea. And so that was kind of like one stream of work we had going. Another stream of work we had going was actually building the product, because Ownright, in its simplest form, is a property closing service. But we've built an application that helps facilitate that service. We've built our own backend software. So there was a lot of product to be built. And this was pre-AI. So like that product had to be designed. And this was something I didn't really even understand going into it, is like, I thought we'd just step into it and be like, okay, define what we want to build, and then Robert would just start building it. But it's like, no, there's a whole effort that you have to go through to kind of like scope out what you're going to build and design it. So that was happening at the time. And then a lot of the administration stuff. So like getting like actually us as founders, like getting the standard shareholder documentation together, working with lawyers to create that. We started trying to raise money pretty early. So we did it on a bit of a rolling, over a rolling timeline, where we put together a pitch deck, got out there, started talking to people to get feedback on the idea and refine it, with the idea that like, we'd get an understanding of what people felt about the idea, and if there was going to be interest in investing in it down the line. And then we kind of took all that feedback, incorporated it into what we were doing. And then once we went out to raise a fundraising round, we kind of already like had our story together that we knew would land. So yeah, like that honestly was like the first 3 months, and even just like further refining the idea. Like right now it seems simple. Like I say, like it's a property closing service, real estate lawyer, but defining how it's all going to fit together. Like, do the lawyers work for you, or do you contract them?
Right.
There was like all those questions. What are we going to price it at? Where are we going to operate? Are we just going to do Ontario? Are we going to be even more focused than that? Are we only going to do Toronto? Like all those were kind of like, it's just a constant barrage of decisions in those early days.
Yeah, I think what creates innovation is constraint, right? Like there's got to be a problem. There's got to be something that's putting pressure on a need. And you guys just so happened to start this company during COVID. So there was a massive constraint and with prices. And as we know where real estate went for the next 4 years, like you'd have a deal closing. From my experience, you'd have a deal closing and be like, oh, the lawyer needs like 3 weeks to close because they're so backed up. And your services come around and it's like, wow, like this couldn't have come at a better time. So you guys, that was all working. And I'm sure you're developing as you go. One thing I wanted to talk about that you mentioned was your pitch deck. Because that's like an underrated part about starting a company, is finding people that are going to support your business financially or send you clients or give you feedback. How vital was that? And who are you going to with these pitch decks?
Good question. And so I'll start with, so how vital was it? Who are we going to? I'll start with even like the kind of unseen value of the pitch deck. So like, I would recommend, even if you're not planning, like if you're starting a business and even if you're not planning on fundraising, I would recommend you still put together a pitch deck. And that's because it forces you to think through the business in depth before you try to go out there and actually execute on it. And if you do like a quick Google of like, and just say like, what should be the slides that are included in pitch deck, it's pretty standard. And I think there's like 9 to 11 slides. And if to be able to complete those slides, you need to actually complete or do a lot of work to inform them. And so like one of the things, it's like you need to share what your numbers are. And so that means that you need to build a forecast. And so I would say like the pitch deck, and we didn't appreciate this at the time, is like, as much as it's an effort to go out there and try to raise some money, it really your focuses you to help you understand like what your business is. What's your core product? What's your what's your marketing and sales plan? What are the numbers? So just an incredibly helpful process, regardless of whether or not you're going out to raise money. Um, and then Richard, I know one of your questions was like, okay, like where do you go and who do you talk to? What was the other part again, though? There was
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering because I have a pitch deck. I have to pitch to realtors.
yeah,
I pitched to Ben. That's how we became friends.
Yeah, Richard cold called me.
Nice. It
was
worked,
awful.
it seems.
I was so reluctant. I was like, oh God, another one of these bastards. Okay, yeah, let's
until he met me.
Yeah,
and
let's
just fell in
meet.
love.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's big in our business. We talk about it all the time, like with other mortgage agents and realtors too, right? To their clients, they're pitching all the time. You want to show your value, which is very important in your pitch, right? How are you going to bring value to your client or your counterparts?
Totally.
But mine was as in that situation. Who are you going to, like investors, other lawyer, like real estate agents? Like, who are you pitching to?
Yeah, at the time it was like investors mostly, and our network lived within the world of tech, I'd say. So like we were going out to people that we knew that had started companies, been a part of startups, understood kind of like the model of what investors would be interested in at that stage. And we knew we wanted to raise money, but we weren't going out to raise like a crazy amount of money. We just, wanted to raise enough to, like, we had forecasted out some of the needs we'd have to get us off the ground, get some revenue in the door, get product built, maybe hire a couple of roles. So we actually weren't pursuing, so the easy answer is like, we were going after investors, and that's who we were talking to. And so some of those people we were going to for advice, but ultimately like we wanted to see if they'd be interested in investing. And then in terms of like types of investors, our belief was always that like our business was more of an angel investor type business. So individual investors that probably have a bit of wealth to be able to invest, but not necessarily always like crazy rich or anything like that. And that as opposed to like institutional money or like venture capital money. So we weren't originally after VC money, both because we didn't necessarily think the business was the right fit for it. And then, we felt that it would be more appealing for angels. So yeah, we talked more to just like people within our network and started socializing it around there. And then we did end up taking on some VC money. And that's because we were quite successful in our raise with angel investors. And then through those folks, we got introduced to the right VC. And I think that's like,
Right.
I could speak forever about the whole process of like fundraising and choosing the right people to, for lack of a better word, get in bed with. And like, angels are one thing because typically they're smaller check sizes. So like you don't hear as much from them. But when you work with a VC, typically they're going to be writing a bigger check and getting a bigger stake in the company. And so you really want to make sure that like you're choosing people that have when they're listening to your pitch or seeing your pitch deck, they're not trying to change it to meet what they want. They're like actually listening to what you're saying. And we got that with the folks that we eventually ended up working with and still work very closely with today.
I have this like vision of Shark Tank. I don't know about you, Ben. That's what I see.
Yeah. Joel, I'm curious, and I don't know if you can share numbers or anything like that, but did you guys have like a target like number in mind when you were fundraising that like you wanted to hit? Because like I have no idea. Like, I don't know if $1 million is a lot to get this thing off the ground. I don't know if we're looking at like $50 million. Like I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah, I can give some of the numbers because they were, I believe they're mostly like shared publicly across news articles out there under the name Doormat. But actually, we had I should say like, the most publicly available stuff is like, it talks about the bigger things. But, one of the huge unlocks for us is like we went to a connection of ours and we were getting advice from him. And, we knew we had some hard costs that we had to deal with right at the start, and we just didn't have the money ourselves to do it. And it was like, I don't even know, it was like, call it like 50 grand was like what we felt we needed. It's probably less than that. And like this person was our first check and just said, hey, like you guys need to like do some work to get off this ground or get this off the ground. So he essentially wrote us a check like then and there to help us get going for the first little bit. And so
Wow.
we don't necessarily talk about that as like our first raise, but like, cause we kind of like rolled that into what was the bigger one after that. But like, he just had some belief in us right off the bat, and put some money on the table when like we truly had nothing. And that gave us some runway to build something that was more pitchable. So then Ben, to your question about, what were we after? We were trying to raise, I think 600K in our first round. And that was to hire a few people, pay for everything around the business to service the business, and be able to take a bit of salary for ourselves, not a lot, but like be able to take a bit of salary and to have ourselves, have some runway for, I think like we were planning for like a year and a half runway on that money. And we were on the path to like, you do different raises as you grow. And so that was basically what we were planning for. But we ended up raising like 1.2. So raised 600 pretty quickly and ended up raising 1.2.
Are you still in touch with that guy that wrote the first check? Because it's like your first client, right? It's like the first person that's believing in your product, right?
Totally. Yeah, we're still in touch with him. He's awesome. I hope give him all the credit in the world. He was a believer, and I think he's like he's a really big contributor to the startup community as well. So he just believes in the Canadian startup community, and he's found a lot of success in it, and he's someone that like really gives back to it. I'd love to name him to give him all the credit in the world, but I'm not even sure he'd like that. So
well, you can give his information to us, like
yeah, there you go, exactly. Yeah, he's really open to pitches.
I love that. Yeah, we need people like that in our country.
Awesome.
Oh, so
totally.
Cool. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice. So now, Doormat now Ownright is like up and running. Things are looking good. I will say I need to interject here to like give you a bit of a compliment. My 75, she's going to kill me for telling you her age. My 75-year-old mother. She sold her house privately. I still looked over the paperwork and she wanted to pay me for it. I said no because like, I'm your son and you've done a lot for me over the years, Mom.
Just a little bit, yeah.
But then it came time to choose a real estate lawyer. And I was like, Mom, like you've got to try, like she still works. She's been a secretary at a high school for 55 years. She knows her way around a computer. It's like, you got to give these guys like Ownright a try. Just like, it's super easy. They walk you through everything. Every time we talk about that deal, she will not stop talking about Ownright. She's like, I didn't have to leave the house. They like, it was easy. They explained everything. I knew what was going on. And just like nothing but good things to say. So obviously you guys have created a product here that, oh God, I'm going to use the word elderly, that the senior population, can use and be very comfortable with and like absolutely love. So like, man, like just kudos on where it's at.
Did you leave a Google review about this, Ben?
I was going to say, can we package that up? Package that little tidbit up?
Is Joel sending you an e-transfer for this? Come on. Usually it's the other way around.
Exactly.
Yes, you caught us. Yeah, no, I'll have to get Mom on the Google review train. I don't even know if she's reviewed me yet, but we'll work on it.
But no, I mean, I love hearing that story. I appreciate it so much. And it's funny, we were, just before this, we had our town hall. And it regularly comes up that like when we're talking to folks who either are, potentially going to work with us or as clients or refer to us as referral partners, one of the assumptions is that like, because there's a tech component to our service, that it's like for younger people. And it's really something that we try to like fight back against. Now, I will say in general, it is better if you're able to use some sort, like you are capable of using some sort of device. So if you like absolutely cannot use one of a iPad, phone, laptop, or whatever, then like, okay, maybe it's not a perfect fit. But like the kind of ethos that we started the company with was like trying to make things as simple as possible. And we believed that like technology was part of that. So, those that have worked like you guys in the space and have probably gone through various types of like closings, analog and digital. And especially pre-COVID, it was like for a whole slew of reasons I can talk about later, but like it was very, very analog. And in a way, it was almost like this commoditized service that it was just constant lawyer speak, really hard for people to feel like comfortable in the process and feel as though they understood what was happening. And so like, even though there's a strong tech component to our solution, like really first and foremost, we're just trying to make it like approachable and simple. And so there's tech, but then there's also just like the service that we provide, the language that we use, generally how we like try to make people feel when they work with us. Because at the end of the day, like most companies in our space can get from beginning to end. Like most of the time, the deal's going to close.
Right.
But really what you're solving for outside of like price point is like how people feel along the way. And like, it's one of those things that like you can feel pretty horrible, even if it closes, just because you were confused, left in the dark the whole time, and didn't really feel like the weight of the transaction was respected in terms of the service that you got. And so we've just tried to do something different. So I'm glad to hear, Ben, that that your mom enjoyed it, because that means a lot.
It's one of the, like, who's going around talking like, about, oh, you got to use this real estate lawyer, or like, hey, let me tell you about the experience I had with this lawyer. Like, I don't know. That's usually not like,
Totally.
yeah, I haven't seen Richard in a while, and hey, Richard, let me tell you about this lawyer. Like, I feel like that doesn't come out naturally, but like, I think experience like is so important, like through this whole process, especially, I mean, like, I'm going to glorify real estate here a little bit, but like people don't make purchases or sales all that often throughout their life.
Right.
So by the time you do it maybe a second or third time, you might have forgotten how the first time went. And, you want to make sure that it's still, I mean, it's going to be naturally a stressful time in your life because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of things to coordinate. But at the end of the day, if like the people involved on your team can, make that process as smooth and comfortable and well-informed as possible, then like, man, why not?
Totally.
Well, I think your 1,200 Google reviews at 5 stars says a lot as well. I think that's very impressive.
All right, he's e-transferring both of us now. There you go.
Yeah, you guys just let me know how much. Yeah, and that's literally like one of the key metrics that we care about the most. And we could probably have gone down a path where maybe we'd have made more money now, or even been able to complete more transactions, but our Google reviews would be at least not as high in terms of like the average stars, but probably we just wouldn't even have as many. But our kind of view is that we're building the business for the long term. So like squeezing out dollars and cents per deal isn't really what we're after, which, understandably for some other businesses, that's a bit more of the priority, but like we have the luxury of being able to build for the long term. And so like that, Google reviews is something that we care hugely about, because that's an illustration of like the quality of our services. And, Ben, to your point, like who goes and talks about like their real estate lawyer experience, like that makes it even more flattering to see those reviews. And I do think like to the kind of point about, real estate and it being something, it's like such a huge transaction in someone's life. And there's, really 3 core parties involved in it. There's your house guy, your mortgage guy, and your lawyer. And I think like you guys come first in the equation. And so there's a lot more consideration that people put into in terms of choosing the right house guy and the right mortgage guy. But the lawyer is like at the end. Most people, especially first time homebuyers, like don't even know that they really need a lawyer. And they don't put much consideration into the decision, almost because probably at that point they're so exhausted. It's like they've gone through the mortgage qualification and approval process and selection. They've searched for a million houses with you, Ben, walked through them all. They're finally at the end, they sign that APS and they're like, what's next? And you're like, you got to choose a lawyer. And just people tend not to like put too much thought into it. But, they should put the same amount of thought that they put into choosing, their real estate professional and their mortgage professional.
Yeah.
And so we try to respect that, where it's like, we know that early days, it's like, sure, people are, pretty passively choosing, but over time we felt and we believe that we can like build a brand that people recognize and trust. So it makes it an easier decision.
Yeah. I always say this when talking to realtors is I'll probably see your client more than you will, because I'm going to see them at renewal and refinance and whatever in between the sale and the purchase. So when I do, like, me and Ben are probably good at this, at like setting the expectation for a lawyer right away. But we've already got our like ambitions into them for a lawyer, right? So it relies on us a lot.
Totally.
But it makes me think of a question, because I'll give you a little bit about how I approach that with my clients when using remote lawyers versus local lawyers. Do you see? So I look at it like this: when you're doing a refinance for a client and there's debt consolidation, and you're working locally, especially in a small town, people are really nervous. It's a really touchy subject, right? There may be some embarrassment around money, of course. And I like to send those type of clients to like these remote lawyers or whatever, just because they're not seeing another person in town that's maybe like knows them or knows their history and stuff. So there's like that's how I approach it. Purchases, especially first time buyers, I do appreciate them seeing someone in person, getting a little bit more hands on, maybe seeing stuff physically. Do you see a difference in your percentage of like what type of business you're doing? Is it more purchases or more refinance? Like, what does it look like for you?
Yeah, it's like we're like 60% purchases. Roughly 60% purchases, and call it they're 25 to 30 sales, and then the rest is refinance. Bunch of reasons for that, but I think one of the big reasons why purchases is like our biggest bucket is like there still is the perception of like we're a young person's closing service. So like naturally, people that like we catch a lot of first time home buyers. And in general, I cannot support this by like with data, but what I would say is like younger folks seem to be more open to like doing their own research on who they select. So we actually have a really strong D2C acquisition channel that very strongly feeds our purchase deals. So yeah, like that's the distribution there. And then I think on the sales side, you have people that have already transacted at least once in their life before when they purchased the property. And so they usually have, or they would often have a lawyer that, they've worked with before. And if it went fine, they'll go back with them.
Right.
But obviously we still get in the mix there because it's usually a long time between transacting. So oftentimes people forget. And then on the refi side of things, like it's a little bit different, like depending on where you're going, like FCT is, or I'll say title insurance companies are in the mix. So it's just a bit of a different competitive landscape. But definitely we like are heavy on the purchases. And I think it's as a result of like being an attractive solution to first time home buyers that are typically that trend younger.
I want you to we'll keep this off the pod maybe on another conversation, but I want you to sell me on that idea so you can convince me to maybe do something a bit different. But yeah, we'll leave that to after the
pod. Sounds good.
Joel, I want to be cognizant of the time here. If you've got to take off, you let me know. But I do have like I have two more questions for you. And Richard, I hope that's okay with you.
Of course.
First is like, I'm not a huge fan of like the grind. The people who are like, you got to wake up at 4 a.m. and work till 10 p.m. every night to like have a successful business. Like I'm a strong believer in like there's balance out there. Like, got a wife and kid and want to spend time with them, see her grow up, but I also want to work hard too. So like there is balance. Did you find in getting this company off the ground, there were those long days, that kind of thing, or like have you managed to find some, that balance or whatever it is that people tend to search for?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like there's absolutely been like days that are a huge grind, and like, of course, I've worked way more on this than I would have, and from an hour's perspective, than I would have worked if, I was still at the bank or something like that. And what you can't really even account for, and I think this would be the same in like in your guys' like work life, is even if you're not working, you're still thinking about work. And so it's like,
Guilty.
you don't get the luxury of just like shutting off, even if you're not currently grinding away. Like, you're still having to think about work, and maybe something's going to come up. So I think like, no matter how balanced you try to be, when the buck stops with you as like, the sole operator of your business or the lead of a business, like, ultimately you can't entirely control when some things come up and need to be addressed. Like, I had it earlier this week where something came up in my evening where, of course, I wouldn't want to deal with something in the evenings, but like, I had to deal with it.
Right.
That said, I think I like absolutely drove myself into the ground with the business before this. And so I was pretty open about, and pushed my wife through a lot at that point too. So I was pretty open with my co-founders about needing to strike. I wouldn't like call it like work-life balance, but like, I couldn't just like dedicate my entire life to work. And my co-founders like were super respectful of that, and have been super respectful.
Nice.
Although we're not like all the same on that front. Like, to the credit of my co-founders, like, they are insanely hard workers, and have like, we've all grinded quite hard, but like, to another level, I'd say I'd give them credit for. They've worked incredibly hard. So like, as people are talking about like pursuing a startup or pursuing entrepreneurship, like, I do believe you can have both. Like, I believe you can have a life, and I believe you can start a business and run a business. But that's not to say that like, at times it's not going to feel like you're, what is it, like, burning both ends of the candle? Is that the saying? Like,
I think so. Yeah.
Burn a candle at both ends.
Something like that. Yeah. Burn the candle at both ends. Like, so yeah, like, it's constantly, just reevaluating how things work. And like, I just had twins in October.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry. My wife had twins.
Yeah, right.
Yes. Let's rephrase.
I won't take credit for that.
Dude.
But yeah. So like,
Congrats.
that changes life a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
Man, how have you managed?
Speaking of foot tall beings that, might consider evicting at some point.
Right.
Just two of them.
Jeez.
But yeah, like, so that changes things, right? And I was able to like say pretty strongly from the start of this business that like, family was always the priority. And then obviously with kids in the mix, like, that's only become, a stronger thing. But that's where it's important to like make sure that you're talking with the people that you're working with and that you work most closely with. So like, in my case, co-founders, and being kind of really clear about what your respective expectations are in the business.
So have you had to go to the office with both strapped to you yet, or avoiding that?
Not yet. We keep saying, like, my wife keeps saying, because she's on mat leave right now. She's like, I want to bring the boys in to come see everyone at the team, because everyone here has seen pictures and everything. And I'm just like, oh my God, the logistics of making that happen in Ben.
Right.
Rich, I don't know if you have kids, but like,
yeah, I got two.
Okay, yeah. So it's like, you think about nap schedules, feeding schedules, and then when it's two, it's like, oh my God, like, how does this happen? It's like, okay, we have to like, immediately when they wake up, feed them, then we'll strap them in the car, get them down to the office, which is like a 20-minute drive, no traffic. They're going to be able to say hi to people for half an hour before they start losing their minds.
The unpredictability, anything could happen, honestly.
Yeah. So they haven't been in yet, but maybe one day. We have a dog too that has come into the office lots, and he's been a fixture here. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it's just, one of you at home got to play zone defense, and that's a whole other ball game, man. That sounds tough.
Yeah. Fun but tough.
And before I forget it, Joel, just the second question I wanted to ask you is, where do you see Ownright in like 10 years?
I mean, I will say like the easy kind of like tagline answer to that is across Canada, which I absolutely do believe, and expect we will be.
So right now, are you guys just Ontario?
Just Ontario right now. We've dabbled in Alberta and BC to try and understand what those markets look like, how we should operate there, and what the model looks like. Kind of similar to the early days of starting like doormat and evaluating how we'd operate in Ontario. One size does not fit all. But right now, like we specifically only service Ontario, and I'd say we like if you would have talked to me right at the start of us beginning this business, like I would have said we would have expanded to other provinces by now. But I'd say this links back to the discussion around like the Google reviews and what we're building for. And so like to build for the long term, you can't get too far ahead of yourself. And so like we're focused on building like a really incredible business that compounds in value over time because of the brand and reputation that we've built. And so that's always going to be kind of like the foundation of how we operate. And so I could say 10 years from now, I can very confidently say like we'll be across the country. But it will never be at the sacrifice of like the quality of service that we deliver. And so that's, something, even if times we feel like we're getting swayed or pulled away from that, we always get anchored back to it. And now that's like, 4-ish years of that. But yeah, like we're sticking in our sphere of service, or actually even I'll say our like line of service. And we're going to do that, and we're going to do it really, really well. So we're not looking to move into other parts of law, not even looking to move into commercial real estate law. And then not looking to move into other parts of like the home buying journey. We're looking to collaborate and work closely with like the other folks that service that home buying journey and continue to establish relationships and reputation there. And truly, yeah, build the brand. And at the risk of opening up like a whole other can of worms, like in the world of like AI and everything that's happening with AI and how easy it's becoming and accessible it's becoming to like build product and design things and market things. It's like brand is increasingly going to become the thing that matters. So it actually just like anchors us back to our original thinking of like, we're not here to make like a quick buck. We're here to compound our brand value and brand reputation over time.
One thing you said there, and I think this is something that a lot of business owners, and I'm guilty of this too, is the slow compound, right? Like you want to rush, you want to jump, you think you're capable of skipping stages, but you really can't. And it is healthy to not, because that's where mistakes are made, or you do something that wasn't the right decision. Do you have any insights on like the power of compounding in your business? Like how valuable is that? I think it's, yeah.
Like wildly valuable. And I'll say what we constantly face conflict with is like we are an investor backed company. So there's like growth expectations, right? Particularly when you have VC money backing you, there's like even bigger growth expectations. But we've been really clear, and this kind of links back to the part that I mentioned earlier about making sure you choose the right people that you work with and that like invest in you. We were very clear in the early days that, this can't just be a business that is like hockey stick growth. And you're just going to go to the moon in like 1 year. And, you start with like 50 transactions in a year. And then the next year you do 2000, like you will, like something will break. And in the service that we're providing, if you break something, like that could be the end of your business. Like if you screw up someone's, like I said, that, almost all deals get to close and, the real estate lawyer doesn't mess it up. It does happen. But if you're like a real estate lawyer that like significantly screws up someone's closing, like you're done, especially if you're in like the early days of it. Right. So, we've always been super conscious about like the balance of, growth, but maintaining the quality of service that we want to provide. And then to your question, Richard, about like, the compounding nature of things, like we have absolutely seen the value in that. And like I could slice and dice it across a bunch of different ways for you, but like to name a few, we have, like I mentioned, quite strong D2C acquisition channels. So like that's a client directly finding us, however, like through Google or through our Instagram or something like that. And so then, say Ben's client finds us and starts working with us, that gives us opportunity to meet Ben, interact with Ben, prove the value of our service to Ben as a real estate agent, and potentially earn his trust and future referrals. And so like that alone is just like one kind of mechanism that can compound over time. And the Google reviews alone, like it wasn't long ago that we had like sub 100 Google reviews or sub 10. And it was like it was really hard to prove to people that we were a legitimate business. Like at the time, I still remember people being like, hey, it's hard to choose you guys when it's like you're 3 guys, 2 of you aren't lawyers, and your company is named Doormat. You have Joel's mom's Google review, and I don't know, like how do you expect us to choose you? Where it's like the effect of like those Google reviews, the effect of like us being present in the media, being searchable online, all that stuff has also had a compounding effect. So like,
which just takes a long time, right? That's the slow burn. Right?
Totally.
Slowly.
Yeah. But so impactful and important. And like, I think, and I think this is where you're going. It's like, if you try to go too fast, and it's a balance, but if you try to go too fast, you can really ruin all the kind of like compounding value that you've created. Like it's really hard to like build that value over time. It's extremely easy to wipe it away in a second.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Especially in legal, the pressure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Joel, I could honestly ask you questions about this all day. It's all like incredible and fascinating. It's like a whole new world that like I know nothing about, and like what you guys have built here is awesome.
Thank you.
Before we say goodbye, I need to give a shout out to Kylie at the office.
Yes.
She is wonderful. She is on top of everything, and I think a huge part of the success is just like how great and on the ball she is. So shout out to Kylie there. But yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on today. Look forward to working with you much more in the future. And man, good luck with those twins.
Oh man.
Thank you.
That's a whole nother pod to talk about kids, man.
Yeah. Well, you guys are farther along down the journey than I am, so I can. We'll have to flip the script, and you can give me some tidbits of advice and perspective there. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on. I could also keep talking forever. This has been really fun.
We'll talk again, I'm sure.
For sure.
Cool, Joel. Yeah, appreciate it, man.
All right.
Thanks, Joel.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
See ya.
Man, Richard, that is like I said, a world I know like very little about. Like I feel like you watch TV and movies and you hear like, oh, venture capitalists and like angel investors and like we're doing business,
right? Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. I think, like I said, the Shark Tank idea, right? That's why I'm thinking about them, right? We haven't had to raise capital in our businesses, right? But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of good things that just the average person or even like a small entrepreneur in a small town, whether it's just yourself or a couple friends, can take away from that journey with Joel. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I will mention to our listeners as well, if you are considering using Ownright, and I'll get Joel to chime in and correct me if I'm wrong here because I know he's still listening, but I am a partner with Ownright. I don't get a kickback for any of this. I'm a partner because I like working with them, and my clients have always been very happy with them. I believe if I refer you as a partner, you get $100 off your fee. Is that okay? He's nodding, so that's good. Right. So if you're considering using Ownright and you want to partner up, you can shoot me a message. And I'd be happy to make the introduction for you guys. That's the end of my plug. That's it.
I was letting you go through it.
Yeah. And while we're plugging stuff, folks, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, let me berate you one more time. The subscribe button is right there. You're looking at it. Smash it, please and thank you. Also, I mean, we've been going through the metrics here, and we've got people listening from all over the world. So, Vietnam, if you're in the house, and maybe it's a VPN, I don't know, but either way, like,
France. I think we had like 4% of our listeners are from France.
Right? Like, qu'est-ce qui se passe, les amis? Like, let's comment on this and tell us where you're from and what you like and what you don't like about the show. Fair?
Ben's accents. You actually are French, so that one's not an accent.
Hey, come on. I don't know what that was. I'm sorry. On that note, that's enough of us for today, folks. As always, thank you so much for stopping by the open house.
I hope you appreciated the amazing business advice, and we'll see you the next time the house is open.
Bye.
Roll the outro. See ya.